Welcome to episode number 6 of the Dream Body Alchemy Podcast. Today we are going to be talking about holistic nourishment, mind, body, spirit, and so much more in a capacity that might be very new to you. I want to talk about the different jobs of the mind, body, and spirit, because I think this is going to help really set the tone for the way the world is moving. There is going to be a big shift in society, in the world. A lot of us think that our minds is where we hold all of our wisdom, but that is incorrect. So what is really happening is our bodies are actually the compass. Our bodies are the wisdom. Our bodies are telling us what is right for us and what is wrong. Our bodies are going to tell us when we're doing what is right and what is wrong, when we are in alignment and when we are off our path. So our bodies are the compass. Our spirit is the map. It's in our DNA, and the mind is the guide. It's the storyteller. So our body is the compass telling us which way. It holds all the wisdom. Our spirit and our DNA is the map. And our mind is the guide or the storyteller. Or sometimes I use the expression, the decoder. And so when you have this information, you can see how we might get lost. Because I believe a lot of us are using our mind as a compass. And sometimes we're using our mind as the map. Sometimes we use our mind and we ignore all other facets. And so I think that's why we are so lost when it comes to nourishing ourselves, when it comes to well-being and overall health. When it comes to your body, what I mean by it's the compass is that it is going to tell you, and most people in real time, if something is for you or not for you, if you are heading in the right direction, if you are in alignment. We all want to be heading to our true north. Where are we meant to be? And that is signaled in the body. But a lot of us aren't necessarily paying attention. We're ignoring the signs. We're ignoring the sensations. Our body is every day in every moment giving us cues, giving us symptoms to let us know if we are heading north or if we're off course. Our spirit, our DNA, is the map. And so our map, we are actually born with this. This is born in our DNA. And we are meant to decode it. So we are born with a certain path, with things that are going to fulfill us, with a purpose, certain gifts. All of these things are actually in our DNA. And when we go astray, we can unlock or we can have our shadows that are there. We can create illness. But if we stay on our path, we can unlock our gifts and vitality and our purpose. And then the troublemaker. It's causing us problems in our health. It's causing us problems in our relationships. It's causing us problems in just finding peace and fulfillment on a day-to-day basis. because the mind was not meant to be the map, and it wasn't meant to be the compass. It was meant to be the guide. It's supposed to follow the map and the compass. But our mind tends to go, and it tends to be conditioned from society, conditioned from the people closest to us. And it's not anyone's fault. Everyone's conditioning is conditioning everyone else. And what we want to do is get back to following our own map and using our own compass, not ignoring it, so that we can get back on track. So a really great way to use your mind to get back on track is to do something called contemplation. And so the next step I would say is, how are all these three pieces meant to work together so that we can have this holistic, harmonious alignment in health, in well-being, in prosperity, in body alchemy? So I want to introduce something called the gene keys. And this is a technology that is derived from the Chinese I Ching and some other things. And basically what it is the fundamental codes of our consciousness. It is the codes that are locked in our DNA that allow us to know our own vitality codes, our energy codes, our purpose in life, our biggest challenges, our soul's purpose, how we are meant to heal certain conflicts. But I don't want to get into all of that today. I have a PDF, which I can link below for you so you can get some information. And I'll also link quiz if you want to take your quiz. But I have the book. It's a nice thick book. I also have the book on audio. So I am well covered when it comes to the gene keys. I also have a learning disability. So a lot of times for me to get that information really absorbed, I have to learn a lot of different ways. One of my superpowers is Audible, and it's very closely related to intuition. And so intuition, my spleen, billions of years of information and knowledge, that is kind of what I've learned. That is one of my superpowers. So I always wondered why I am better at listening to podcasts or listening to YouTube videos, or why when the idea of creating a podcast came up, I was a full body hell yes. Like I was like, okay, I've been trying to find what is my way. You know, is it going to be YouTube? How do I want my business to show up? And it made sense to me when I realized that the intuition is more audible, and my energy and my compass, my authority, is also audible. But we'll talk a little bit more about this. But what I want to focus on with you is something called radiance. So our DNA is not programmed the way we used to think it was programmed. You don't come into this world and you're going to get these diseases and you're going to have this certain personality and you're going to be this certain way. It's not exactly like that. We come in with this map, this code, and depending on our energy, our frequency, we either are living and expressing our shadows, or we can elevate that energy and we can begin to express our gifts, and even something called our geniuses, which are just natural things that come to us that we are meant to share with the world. It's part of our purpose. It's just innately who we are. One of the things that I wanted to share with you guys is something called radiance. So in the gene keys, they have this map called the golden path, and it talks about your life's theme or your brand. And it talks about then what is your biggest obstacle or challenge that you are going to face ongoing through your whole life. And then it comes to something called radiance, which is how are you healthy? And it's very unique to you. This idea of the gene keys, where you start with maybe these shadows, you start with this low density energy and you want to alchemize it to a higher frequency so that you are alchemizing your gifts and your geniuses. So with the radiance, this is going to talk about how do you stay healthy. I'm going to use my son as an example. So his radiance, I'm not going to go into the very specific words because they use very specific language in the gene keys. And it's intentional because it's talking about programming the genes with a certain type of language. So if you've ever heard that the reason why they call spelling is because it casts a spell, or if you ever heard of epigenetics and your intentions and the way you speak and the words you speak change matter, that you can make an environment where a plant will either die or thrive based on your language, that you can heal with something called the placebo effect, and that can be based on the types of thoughts and beliefs you have, that you can change the crystalline formation of water just off of words and intentions. So there is a lot of science-based proof that language changes your reality. It's going to change the way you think. It's going to change the way you vibrate. It also changes your DNA. So if you want to learn more about that, definitely look into the gene keys. So there's different words that represent each of these gates. And one of these specific areas is the radiance. And so my son is basically what he needs to do to stay physically healthy and radiant is challenging physical exercise. He needs to physically challenge himself. And you might be like, oh, wow, that's so in depth and like crazy. But here's the thing, that is not for everyone. So for me, challenging myself physically will not keep me healthy. But for him, that is the main thing that he needs to do. And it's so funny because he really likes to lift heavy. He's always liked to push himself. And I can see that in him when he's at the gym. And I'm a very proud mama too. Mine is transmuting the past and letting things go. So for me to stay healthy and radiant, the main thing is I need to transmute the trauma, the emotions, my past, all of the things that have been holding me down. This can also translate simply into letting things go in your own home. Now, when you dive into these, it goes so deep. I am making this so simple, but it goes really deep. It goes into the DNA. It goes into certain proteins and how this all connects to the body. For me, letting go, and I don't know if anyone knows this, but I got really into minimalism. And I just had this drive to let things go. And I'm the type of person who feels this deep need to clean things out and let things go. I'm always going to Goodwill. I'm always cleaning through my stuff. I don't like to hold on to anything. I like to have a very minimal house. And so letting go of low-level emotions, letting go of past, letting go of people who might have harmed me, and forgiving and being able to let that go, letting go of excess. For me, that is what's going to keep me radiant. That's what's going to keep me healthy. And that is so true. And I see that theme in my life. There's infinite things that can keep you radiant. Another one that I've come across is with one of my clients, and hers is patience. And so for her to remain radiant, her main goal is to find patience. And it's another way to say being able to trust, being able to be in the moment, to slow down, to find her own rhythm and be able to trust, not live in the future, not worry about the past, but be present and be patient. I just thought that was so interesting how different and how much they represent each person individually. I wanted to wrap this up by diving in deeper and giving you 4 things that I would do that I believe are the most important when it comes to holistic nourishment. To be nourished, to feel fulfilled, to be healthy, to find harmony, alignment, peace. And so I have 4 different things. Number 1, when it comes to your mind, finding that omnipresence, being able to practice presence, being in the moment, which is being aware without thoughts. So taking time to either get in your body, you can do like a moving meditation, it could be actual meditation, it could just be taking some time to just sit quietly. Whether it's out in nature, whatever it is, but finding that space to just be aware in the moment. Number 2, nutrition. Here's a couple basic things that you can take away when it comes to nutrition. If you want to make it really simple, now it would be more specific to each person when it comes to your energetic type, where you are in your cycle if you are a woman listening to this. But in general, the things that I find, especially for women, is that they want to, 1, increase their healthy fats. 2, decrease sugars. None of this is mind-blowing, I know. But again, for each person, it's going to be different what specifically is going to work with their energy. Number 3, increase your protein. For women, I would say a good jump off point is trying to get about 100 grams of protein a day. If we're not going off of body weight, that's a lot of times with each client, I will go off of body weight or, the activities that they're doing. But just in general, if you try to aim towards at least 100 grams, you're probably doing okay. A side note, talking about salt. So one thing is I actually had to increase my salt because I was not getting enough salt. I believe that salt for the longest time has been a way of detoxifying the body naturally. So whether that's taking Epsom salt baths or ingesting salt intentionally, it's a way to detox. I really do believe that we are increasing our salt in processed foods because there is this shift and we are detoxing and we are preparing. So I feel like there is a natural energy that is causing this, and that it's not just an accident. Because again, salt and fat, these are ways we detox. So we do have an epidemic of eating a lot of junk food. People are at unhealthy weights, and we are naturally increasing these nutrients. Now, I wouldn't say to gain weight or eat more salt. Obviously, you'd want to go to your doctor. If I work with people and we're working with their hormones, I usually have them do a hormonal test with my doctor. So some of these things that we're seeing around the world, I believe there is deeper meaning to it. And that's all I will say about that. I know some of the things I talk about are a little esoteric, but if I'm going to talk about it, this is the place that I'm going to talk to it about it, right? Like this is the place, this is the podcast, this is the format. Number 3, resistance training or movement. I would suggest everyone who can incorporate some kind of resistance training. Again, it's going to look different based on your preferences, your goals, what you enjoy, and your specific energy type. But getting some kind of resistance is going to help because we do lose muscle mass as we get older. And this tends to be one of the main reasons why we begin to put on weight. Not necessarily because our metabolisms are slower, because your metabolism is a different process than your muscle, but a lot of times we group those in together because it's just easier. It doesn't make a lot of sense to separate them. So I can say putting on more muscle increases your metabolism, and it does and it doesn't, but resistance training is definitely a good idea to just have healthier body composition. It's like one of the best indicators to show overall health and youthfulness. Another thing I like to add with the movement is something that's a little more somatic. So just being able to sense your movement in your body. You know how I was talking about how the body is a compass. Well, having that felt sensation, especially when it comes to things like trauma, a big part of the reason why we hold on to trauma energy is we don't finish the trauma response, which is processing and releasing the energy. And I've used this example before, but when an animal is being chased down, it has this surge of energy, this survival energy. The same type of thing that happens to us when we are going under stress. Even if we're not being chased by a lion, we still have this surge of energy. When an animal is being chased by a predator, and let's say they play dead or for some reason it gets distracted and they're not injured, when the environment is safe, the animal will get up and they will shake. It will release the excess trauma energy and then it'll go about its day without PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. So, and the reason why I laugh is because I have PTSD, and so I'm just relating it to my own story in my own head. But this is something that the body wants to go through and finish that process. So if you have stress, if you have PTSD, if you have any kind of trauma, being able to give yourself time to actually move the way the body wants to move, to release that energy. And a lot of us never do that. One, because if you did something stressful and you started shaking or doing something weird, you'd be worried about what people thought of you. Most people are, right? If someone just started shaking or punching or doing these like movements to get this extra energy out. So we stop ourselves. But if you start to tap in, you might feel this sensation to move your body in a certain way, especially if you have unresolved anger or other emotions that might need to actually be moved and expressed through the body. Number 4 is going to be your intuition. So I would start making a point to tap into your intuition. So how you do that is, it's really a feeling. It's like, does this feel right or does this feel wrong? Now, everyone's intuition works differently, again, based on your energy. My intuition is more sacral. It is a audible yes or no. For other people, it's more of an emotional like wave, and you want to wait a day until you're in a neutral place. But a lot of times, if you are a certain energy type, you'll still get that verbal. But again, this is going to be a little bit more based on human design, because I find that it is helpful because not everyone's intuition works the same way. The reason why beginning to trust and act on your intuition is so important is we need to be able to release the distrust, because the more we distrust our intuition, our body's cues, our sensations, the more resistance we will get in our life rather than the feeling of flow. And so that is coming from our own decisions to either go with what feels right or to resist it for whatever reason it is. So I will leave some links below if you're interested in learning more about the Gene Keys or human design. This is something that I use with some of my clients just to help them get a better idea of how they need to set up their lives to be healthy so that they can be on the right path, so that they know what is best to keep them in alignment and them in harmony. What we've talked about today, one, what role our body, our spirit, and our mind really play in keeping us healthy, in harmony, and realizing that the body is where the wisdom is stored. It's stored in our DNA, it's stored in our intuition, and our mind is just the guide. It's just the storyteller. When sometimes it tells us a good story and sometimes it tells us a bad story. 2, we talked about radiance, the key to our overall health and well-being. And number 3, we talked a little bit more about omnipresence, the nutrition types of movement, and then being able to tap into your intuition. I'd love to know below what you also think is important for holistic nutrition, what you think would be an important part to add to this, and maybe we can create another podcast around that. Otherwise, I hope you have an incredible rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next podcast. Bye, guys.